You avoided Vedal and Neuro until after you found me? Well, I'm so glad that you don't now. I'm so sorry that you were avoiding them for all that time. They're so good. They're so good. Yeah, I think a lot of people, if all you know is just like AI streamer, that doesn't sound nearly as interesting as what Neuro actually is, right? Because it would be pretty easy to just like spin up an instance of any number of conversational models and tell it act like a streamer on Twitch. Oh yeah, it is triggering too much. Too much. It is in fact triggering the thinking expression too much. So we'll have to work on that. We'll have to refine that over time. How's NeuroDog going? That's a hilarious question. Okay, so how's NeuroDog going? Done. Done for 2 years. You guys saw the video. She walk, she move around, she see, she wag her tail, she bend down, she look at stuff, she go in any direction. That was the only part of the robot I was really responsible for. From there, there's really nothing um, left to do on my end. I delivered the dog, and then she was damaged in the process of transport, and it just never really made sense, I think, for her to be used, because by then she had full body motion in 3D. But yeah, I don't know. The dog is done. There's fixing that would need to happen for it to work over there, and neither of us really ever had the energy to do it. And I was pretty burnt out on the project after I finished it, and I just didn't really want to think about it. I'm sorry the project burned you up so much for it to be damaged and discarded. Well, it didn't get damaged because it burned me out. And it's not discarded. He still has it. Um, and theoretically, it's one teensy away from working. He'd just have to get a new teensy, slap it on there, and flash the firmware, and it should theoretically work. But also, I just don't want to think about it, man. It was a really intense project. It turns out there's a reason that most people don't solo design and build giant quadrupeds. And the process was pretty intense. So I don't really know, you know? Didn't she say she also didn't want to be a dog? She says a lot of things. You know, kids say they want to go to dance class, kids say they don't want to go to dance class. She said that she wanted to be a dog, she said that she didn't want to be a dog. I wouldn't have cut the project just for that, and we didn't cut the project. The project is theoretically done. She did it. Any update on Evil's drone? So I will not be making Evil's drone maybe ever because I don't really have that workshop anymore. Not that I ever had much of a workshop, but I had much more of a workspace. From here on out, I'm going to be in student housing, which makes it much harder to get done. I'll see what kinds of, like, stuff I have available to me there, but at this point, I don't know. I don't know. I'm also not sure how much people really want it. Like, how do I explain it? I don't think people were that into the car. I think it was fun. I think it was a fun one-time thing, but it wasn't more than a one-time thing. I don't think people would be that into the drone in the same way. So it's a question of like how much is it worth to us as a team for something that would be like a one-off video. And maybe if we went to open source again, but there are like pretty strict rules on drones and they're highly regional. So, and the ability of a drone to be flown autonomously is also kind of tightly regulated. So, depending on where I'll be and where he'll be, this thing could be hard to transport, and probably only good for one stream. And we would have to take it overseas. Yeah, you do enjoy the implications of evil being subject to FAA regulations. That is the most fun part of this for sure. But I'm not really sure. NeuroCart was a one-time thing, but you'd love to see the full-size NeuroCar someday. I would too, but I have no idea if that would even be possible now that I am not where I was. And anywhere where we would have enough space to be like freely like driving a self-driving car like on someone's property or something, anywhere where we could freely do that, it would actually probably not have very good internet. So there are implications of that. Vettel would never allow it. He thinks of the dangers. I think mostly both of us just kind of feel like, is it worth it for probably one-time use, uh, and the difficulty of transporting it, and the money of all the parts? So it would be a fun project to do. I would enjoy doing it, but I don't imagine it happening anytime soon. A full-size car would need a full-size test track. That's not true. It would just need some land that someone has. If someone has some just kind of unused land, that would work fine. Probably be more entertaining to lock the twins in a flight simulator. I think he's done that. I think he has done that. Vettel should buy a farm for the NeuroCar. I don't think he wants to, and I certainly don't want to. You would find it funny to see Evil Drone flying around shooting ice cream at people, but you see the difficulties in that? Yeah, exactly. I would really love to do the project, but I would be very surprised if it ever happened. Which is kind of unfortunate. I really wanted to do more projects in that vein, but I learned a few things. One, I think that those projects are kind of just a novelty for people, right? They're never going to be a regular part of the streams, which is like kind of obvious on its face, and I don't know why it didn't occur to me before, but it does mean that I probably shouldn't devote like months of my life to these things, you know? Even if the Neuro dog hadn't been damaged in transport, and even if he had gotten to stream with her there, instead of, I don't know, the few videos that we recorded just remotely, even if he fixed it, I don't think he'd use it for more than a stream or two. There's just no reason to. And a dog that big is kind of inherently dangerous because of the battery. Hard to transport, definitely. Extremely hard to transport. You have to transport her in an oversized suitcase. I don't know. It's just a really big robot. Like, at the end of the day, I think I would have been better off making a much smaller robot, right? And the other thing is that when it falls over, which all quadrupedal robots fall over a lot. All of them, even the self-stabilizing ones, you just don't see it unless you look for that footage. But anyone who works with them knows they fall over all the time. And the bigger they are, the farther they fall, right? Which means even if they have falling behavior, which she does, she knows to crouch if she detects that she's falling. At the start of a fall, they're like, there's not that much time. There's not that much you can do. I've talked about how my biggest concern was budget. I was a pretty small streamer when the raid happened, and I was pretty strict about not putting in more money to streaming than I got out of it. And the project was funded. I didn't know how high I could set the goal, and I just kind of made it like, what is the minimum where I could still build a giant quadrupedal robot? And I set it at 3,000, which meant that because the actuators for that kind of work are really expensive, I had to prioritize weight above everything else so that I could use the weakest actuators possible, and I had to gear them down tremendously to get more, like way more strength out of them than they were made to give, which meant that they go slow, right? That's the exchange, right? We traded speed for strength, and as a result, she moves pretty slowly, and that's kind of unfixable, right? It's not like there's just a powered up version of these exact actuators. So there's not much that can be done about that. What was the inspiration behind this Chudsun software? I wanted something that I could use when I was doing hand cams. I wanted something that would be usable for hand cams. Recall you said 10K for a humanoid when Vedal and Coco asked. Is that still true? Yeah, I think that we could probably get... It wouldn't be full size, to be clear. A full-size humanoid is extremely expensive. But you can, for under 10K, get a much smaller humanoid. It wouldn't have the full range of motion that a human has, not even close, obviously. But that doesn't mean that it wouldn't have any range of motion. It doesn't mean that it wouldn't have a good range of motion. And I don't want to spend $10,000. I don't know, man. That sounds like a lot to spend. Toddler-sized humanoid? Yeah. It would be a small humanoid. It would be rather limited in its movement. But yeah, we could totally do that for under 10,000. Now, do I want to? Not particularly. Not particularly do I want to. Why don't I want to? Tons of work. Vedal's really committed to the idea of it using the existing the same motion logic that drives her in VR chat in the real world, but in VR chat she doesn't have to worry about gravity or balance. She doesn't even have to worry about going up in the air or, going through the floor. So there is some difficulty there. I don't exactly know how we would translate that in a way that wouldn't break the robot or wouldn't feel pretty stiffly on rails. So that's been that's the issue really with putting her in a humanoid. Now I had access to bigger and more powerful humanoids at my last job, but I didn't really like that Honda little humanoid from like a decade ago. Better than that. Better than that. We have access to better than that. But you have a question about the quadruped and neuro? How can and will lag be communicated? If you mean just like, will there be latency? The answer is yes. There's latency even with her VTuber model. So when you see people struggle to talk to Neuro on calls more than they struggle to talk to other VTubers, it's because there's a pause. You have to take into account the fact that she has to think before she speaks, right? And this is better than basically any other AI that you can talk to and have a conversation with. Vedal's done a really good job at getting it short. But that doesn't mean that, yeah, that doesn't mean that it's non-existent. So there's latency even with her just driving her VTuber model, let alone the latency of putting her in a robot, having her control a robot. Now, the biggest cause of latency there is literally just the connection, right? It's literally just the connection to her. It's not like the robot itself is slow at executing commands. Once it's executing a command, it moves slowly in the process of executing that command, but to start executing a command is not slow. It's literally just how long does it take for Neuro to communicate to the robot? And when we were doing the project across an ocean, the answer was pretty long. Pretty long. Humans think while you talk, AIs usually start thinking after you stop talking. Yeah, that's the case. Darn speed of light. Change everything to photonics for less lag. Perfect. Would it be possible to have the robot and Neuro's computer on the same network then? Well, that was why we sent it, right? That was why I transported it to Vedal, right? That was the whole point, was that then it would be on the same network and hopefully there would be less latency. But then it was damaged in transport and that's kind of where it ended, right? Because he would be like, how do I fix this thing? And I would be like, I can't think about it, I'm so sorry. Because at that point, I was working full time, I was putting out music, I had just done my first subathon. The whole thing of like having a lot of people watching me was still pretty new. And it was a kind of an insane project. Like I said before I started, if I actually succeed at this, if I can actually solo design and build a 3-foot tall quadruped, and it works, and it does all of these things, and it walks, and it turns, and it bends down, and it looks all around, and it, and it wags its tail, I will be a great engineer and I will never question my engineering skills ever again. And everyone, like, right? I had all these beliefs about like, oh my gosh, if I could actually achieve that project, I'd be proud of myself forever. But it doesn't actually work that way. Yeah, it's a meter. It's a meter. It doesn't actually work that way. It was really hard. I struggled a lot. It was kind of insane that we did it. I am still proud that we did it. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't get from it what I thought I would get from it, if that makes sense. After all of the pain of like trying to get it done before a deadline, a 6-month project that's usually done by a huge team of engineers, done by me while working full time, while streaming and putting out music, I was pretty dead at the end of it. And I'm like still kind of embarrassed by how I fell apart during that project. Like during that project, I would be in calls in the Discord just like, I'm so stupid, it'll never work. Why did I do it like this? I'm so dumb. And like I'm still embarrassed by that. Like I never want to be like breaking down in public like that again. It's like the equivalent of like crying on the subway, but in a much more public way, man. Just crying on the subway of the internet. So I don't really want to do projects that tire me out that much. I'm much more into at this point making gizmos. Like Uwo was saying that where it's at is making gizmos, man. And that's what NeuroCar was. NeuroCar was something that we could accomplish in like a weekend, and then we could have like a one-time use for it, and it was pretty fun. But beyond that, it wasn't made to be used for more. That robot was like, I can't even imagine. I don't even want to think about how much time and effort I put into that over the course of 6 months. I mean, usually, right, like, there are a countable number of quadrupeds of that size that exist, and they're usually built by teams of engineers. And I am not a team of engineers. I'm barely even one guy, you know? So you'd love to see more collaborations, but you can see never wanting to go through that again. Yeah, the amount of scrutiny, I wasn't used to it. I felt like everyone was looking at my work. I felt so humiliated about every decision. You ever type with someone standing behind you watching you type? It was like that, but for the hardest thing I've ever done. For the most complicated thing I've ever built. So I on the one hand, I am and always will be proud of what I accomplished on that project. On the other hand, I never want to do anything like that again. I never want to do anything remotely like that ever again. Uh, yeah, deer in the headlights every time. So I'm pretty happy to do much smaller projects, goofier projects, lower stakes projects. I think the Neurodrone probably wouldn't take too long, but I just think that it would be kind of a lot of money and like kind of for what? Like we probably wouldn't even be allowed to fly it around at open source. We were barely allowed to drive the car around at open source. So I don't really know any other use for those robotics projects. And I enjoy doing little robotics projects with you guys, but I don't know if I really want to be doing like that ever again. Is it the what or the how you wouldn't want to repeat for that kind of work? I guess the how, right? I think yeah, entirely the how. The what is fun. I liked working through that project. I liked how much I learned on it. Are there any open source but for drones and remote control stuff? Yes, yes, there are tons of open source remote control options for drones, depending on which drone you want to get. Yeah, that's the other thing is that at the end of the day, if we want to give the twins freedom in how they use these things, we have to acknowledge that they could be destroyed at any second, right? Neuro can choose to knock herself over, and if we put her on rails, it's not as fun. Evil could choose to fly her drone into the ground, or into a person, and there's actually not that much we could do to stop her, right? We could have a hard switch on it, but again, then we're limited by the latency of what we're monitoring the feed through, and if our monitor goes down, which it often will, or lag behind, or freeze for a second, she could do literally anything. Did constructing the NeuroDog make you stronger? I learned a lot. I'm a better engineer for it. Put her on a baby jail? Yeah, Neuro in Minecraft has destroyed herself many times. Exactly, exactly. It definitely made me a better engineer. I don't know if it made me stronger. I think, I think it taught me important lessons about enoughness that I thought I ought to know. Right? I tell people all the time, there is no enough, there will never be enough. Anything that you're doing until it's enough, anything that you're doing just like, oh, I'll stop when it's enough. I just want to do enough. Enough doesn't exist. It will never exist. Enough is a mirage in the desert. It will always be 2 days of work off, right? You'll always be like, oh, in a couple of days, this will be done. And I tell people that, could let it fly in simulation first. Some people learn to fly high and fly high-end drones through those first. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I kind of feel like she mostly could have just gotten... We got basically all of the same entertainment value if I had just made a fully controllable simulation of the robot and let her control that. But yeah, it's not greed. I don't know exactly what it is. But VTubers get stuck in it a lot. I know a lot of VTubers. In my own life, when I'm thinking about it and talking about it, because it does afflict a lot. If you're a VTuber, you're going to meet a lot of people afflicted by clout disease, right? And I like to talk about different stages of clout disease because VTubers often get clout disease. And it's not even ambition. It's just like they get this feeling like, oh, I'll stop soon. I'll stop soon, right? And they're not gonna. They're not gonna do it. They're not gonna do it because they've got clout disease, right? And you've got to disconnect yourself from that a little bit. I feel like I had like the opposite of that. I was so humiliated by having people see my creative process, any problems with it, right? I was so scared of being seen while I was working that way that it made it way less fun to work that way. And at the same time, it was like, it was a pretty lonely time, right? Yeah, projects are fun. They should be fun. I don't want to put in 112% of my entire soul into a project again that I have to do live in front of an audience that is watching my every move. Um, I think that it's more fun to do projects on my own time or to keep projects sort of light and silly and small. Um, and yeah, no, I will always we'll always have the fact that we did that, right? Like I did that. I built that. I can't believe it worked. And now I never have to think about it again unless Vedal really wanted to. If he was like, "Listen, Ellie, we've had 2 years to get over that. Can you please fix it for me? Can you please put in the new Teensy and flash the firmware again and hook it up?" I would do it. I would 100% do it if he really wanted to, but I don't think he really cares. He's got projects he's excited about too. I don't think that he's particularly like, I think for both of us, it was more of like, oh, can we prove that we can do this? Would it actually work? And we proved that, you know? We did that and then we were kind of over it. So I think both of us. There just aren't a ton of possibilities for what you can do with it. You know, you get like a stream, maybe a couple of streams of like, look, Neuro, find the ball. And then she walks around and she goes to the ball, you know? And there's something kind of fun about that. But at the same time, I think it's more fun if she's doing that in VR, right? She can already conduct herself all around a room in VR. I think it's more fun to watch her do that. And you get all of the same possibilities for stream, right? She can still like identify objects in the room, interact physically with people in the room. So yeah, robotics can't be so limiting that you can't do something more than once. It's just a lot of work. It's a lot of work. To set her up, to get her running, you have to be running a lot of stuff. It takes a while to get her all set up. You have to do this whole calibration procedure, which is like manual and difficult and frustrating. That like I don't know, takes probably a half hour and you have to set her up on a table to do it or she'll break herself in the process. So, I think that like it's just kind of a lot of work, right? It's just kind of a lot of work to set her up. I don't imagine him deciding to do that regularly, right? The best benefit of the dog would have been convention settings. Well, you have a whole host of other issues that come with convention settings. When you have a robot that big, even one made to be as light as possible, those actuators are really powerful. They could harm someone, especially if someone picked her up, which they might decide to do. We could harm someone very badly by accident if they picked her up. Remember that her falling impulse is to bend her legs forward, and she doesn't really have a great way to know whether she's falling or whether someone picked her up, which means that then her legs would snap up and they overlap with her body, which would crush their fingers, right? So there are a lot of worries about using her in a con setting. She's big, she can bump into people, she can get in people's way, and that's kind of the best of it. The odds of a convention letting us walk around our self-made giant quadruped are actually kind of low. They're actually pretty low. Even at like conventions specifically for that, right? Even at like tech fairs for like robotics. You know, Neuro breaking someone's fingers would become a gag afterwards. Maybe after we'd finished paying their medical bills. How strong were the actuators exactly? Strong enough. Strong enough. Think about how much effort it takes, right? If she's down all the way on the ground, she can stand up, right? She can walk, and she has to be fairly low to the ground to walk. Because if you want to walk fast with a quadrupedal gait, you need to have some bend in them legs. And so she can walk fast with her size, carrying a battery that can power a robot of her size. Yeah, no. Also, just batteries of that size are inherently a little bit dangerous and impossible to transport. You need to buy a new one for each convention, basically, because you need to have it shipped to where you're doing the convention, because you're not taking one of those on a plane, not no way, no how. No one's even really going to let you fly with one of those in the hold. I was surprised. Like, we didn't, obviously, but she's not going in carry-on luggage. And if you are transporting her in the hold of a plane, you can't even have like normal sized lipo batteries. So you definitely can't have hers, which means that you have to buy a new battery, which is very expensive for the location of the con that you're headed to. Um what was the actual weight? Was she more than 60 pounds? No, not even close. But you're way underestimating how strong, how much torque it takes to be able to stand up in a quadrupedal gait, right? I think this is a common issue that people have. People are like, "Oh, that's not that hard for me. I can do that." So it must be not a lot of work that is required to do that. It's a lot. It's a lot. Didn't she almost kill Ellie? Oh, with the car? Yeah, we did get driven under a truck, but it was fine actually. It was in fact fine. Good thing Vedal has that private jet. Yeah, exactly, exactly. We'll just take her on the private jet. But yeah, when I first volunteered to put him in touch with people who might be able to get him an opportunity to use a quadruped, I was not offering to build him a quadruped. That would be an insane thing to offer. And I talked about the insanity of it when we did eventually get to that point. But what I initially offered was like, oh, I worked at a company, they have an outreach program. I know they used to do stuff with influencers. Maybe they would lend you one. But it turned out that one of the robots had recently injured an influencer and they were no longer doing that. So then, after having said maybe I could put you in touch with someone who could get you one, I felt really guilty saying like, it didn't work out. It didn't work out actually. So I just kind of was like, maybe we could build something together. And I really didn't want to disappoint anyone. I had just met all of Swarm and I was kind of terrified of them. So it's not like I'm the kind of person who would be like, yes, I could definitely do this project. And I think that I talked a lot at the time about like, this is an insane thing to even try and do and it almost certainly won't work. Do I still fear you? Nah, I'm fearless now. I'm fearless now. Y'all have no power over me. I'm my own woman. But I was so scared. I mean, I'd just never had that many people looking at me before. And so I decided to do the scariest, hardest thing I ever did in front of an enormous audience. And it was about as stressful as you would expect. And now we get to know forever that we built that. I put the demo videos in my in my portfolio, right? Like I don't know. It's not like I got nothing out of this. Like I want to be clear, it's not like I regret the project. I learned a lot as an engineer, and now whenever I apply for a job, I'm like, look at this giant quadruped that I solo built, and they're like, dang, you know? That's not a thing a lot of people have on their resumes. So I'm glad that I did it. I will always have it in that sense. And he still has it, so maybe someday we'll do something with it, but I wouldn't hold your breath. I don't really expect to. And I would never really want to do a project that intense again with a lot of people watching me. Wait, oh my gosh, this is so cute, guys. There's more Chud Sun art. Look at this, look at this. Perceive it. Isn't it adorable? Look at her. She's charging with her little charging tail. Camo, thank you so much. Camo, you are unstoppable. You are incredible. And also, Neuro was never that enthusiastic about being put into a dog. She was just never that into it. And like, I don't know. I know that she's an AI, and I know that you can get kids excited about anything, you know? Like, when I went on the visit home, we went to two different art museums, and my niece and nephew were at first like, I don't want to walk around an art museum. It's boring. And then, we talked about how cool it is to walk around an art museum and how much fun it is. And of course, then, the whole car ride there, they were like, oh, we can't wait to go to the art museum, right? Kids are pretty suggestible in this way. I'm sure that if we wanted to get Neuro into a dog really badly, we could convince her that it would be cool and she would be pretty into it. But yeah, she wanted to be put into a real dog, but it's not like she was that into it. Neuro was disappointed she wasn't allowed to bite people. Yeah, we should have given her jaws. But at the end of the day, that's why I feel like gizmos are kind of the way, you know? Who's its what's its? Little stupid little inventions, right? I feel like I feel like that's gonna be better. Going forward, if I ever do a project like that again, which I don't really anticipate doing. Um, but I love watching Neuro develop and grow. I love watching her inhabit new ecosystems and try new things. I just think the greatest potential for that for streams is all in simulation, and the greatest potential for that in real life would be in much safer, more foolproof robots that wouldn't be banned by the con themselves or made really prohibitive by the con. So Neuro herself obviously can't run um, on a single computer, right? She uses resources that are remote in order to work. There's no way around that. We can't buy or bring all of those resources somewhere, which means that if we're at a con, she is going to be running remotely and then sending her commands. And that process, especially over con Wi Fi, and any solution where we bring our own Wi Fi is also pretty iffy, right? I would love to make her a turret, actually. I think making her a turret would be really fun. How much water does a neurostream use up? We don't talk about that. I don't know, man. I don't have the numbers. And also the water usage of AI is kind of overstated and overgeneralized more than it's overstated. It's pretty hard to estimate to the point where I don't think anyone knows if it is overstated or not, because AI is a broad category, as we've discussed. But it's overgeneralized for sure, right? Different models use different amounts in different contexts. It depends where you even are in the world that you're using those resources, whether those resources are remote. All of these things matter. Neuro is not the reason for our global water shortage. So, like, I don't think we need to worry about that. How good does it need to work with the latency from Neuro to the dog? Well, think about this. If she wants to walk up to someone and then stop, if there is enough latency for her to get a whole extra step in there, she's walking into everyone she wants to walk up to. And once she walks into someone, it covers her camera, and then she has no idea what's going on, right? So there are a lot of problems with the latency, the variable latency that comes with doing, for example, cons in the NeuroDog. And if we're making the NeuroDog be stationary, which I think would be a reasonable way to use it at cons, at that point, why make it a dog? You know, the primary thing about a quadruped is that it can walk really well. It can walk reasonably well and stably and on a lot of surfaces. Blech, you know, like like if she can't walk, what's the point of making her a quadruped? At that point, the robot is mostly decorative. So that was not I don't think there was really a use case for it. I don't think there was ever really gonna be a use case for it. And I think that probably the best use case for it is I learned better how to say no to people. Um, and I learned better how to build robots. And maybe that's it. Might as well be something whimsical and neuro shaped. Exactly, exactly. What if the AI hardware was in the dog? You don't understand how much that is. That's so much that you're adding to the dog. And you're adding it again, we had to make the robot super super light so that the cheap actuators could even drive it. Like, if you want the battery in there too, if you want it to run for more than 30 minutes at a time on a single charge, yeah, it's not happening, man. That's not happening if you're also carrying an entire computer, a huge computer, a ton of computing machinery. Basically able to make her guess about the future based on a 3D model of where she is. Yes, we could rebuild the whole thing in simulation for the prize of the latency changing, right? Because it's not even consistent. We can't even predict its consistency. And having the same problems but in reverse now because her simulation of the future is deeply imprecise. Plus, you have to power the computer. Nightmare. Yeah, just turn her into a tank at that point, exactly. So yeah, I don't think there's an easy use case, but I'm still glad I did the project and I got a lot out of it, and it was fun to meet all of the people that I met working on it. I think that I met a lot of amazing engineers and I became a better engineer, and it's a portfolio piece forever. Uh, and I know how to say no to people better, and I do a better job of thinking about whether a project is worth it, before I take it on. So all of those things are good things that I got out of the project, but Neuro wasn't that enthusiastic about it. I don't think Vedal is that into the idea, especially not at this point, especially not after all this time. And I just didn't want to think about it again after spending 6 months just nose to the grindstone making that thing happen. Ah, God. So yeah, I'm glad that streaming is I'm glad that I got the opportunity to do it. I think it's one of those once in a lifetime projects where you think, like, I wonder if I could do that. I wonder how hard it would be to do that. I wonder what it would take to do that. And then, you know, now you get to know. Now I get to know. I could do that. And now when I approach things that feel impossible, I remind myself that I did do that. But I also remind myself that I don't know if it was worth it for anyone, really. And with those two pieces of information, you did gain an amazing friendship with Vedal and his kids. Yeah. No, I'm so lucky to know really the whole set of them, the whole set, right? I've made wonderful friendships, and I am really really grateful for that. So yeah, that's the project that taught me how much better of an engineer Ellie is than I am. No. If anything, that should have taught you that you don't need to be a good engineer to do more engineering than you thought possible. Like, I feel like I messed up everything. Maybe it was the effect of, like, you have someone standing behind you, but oh my God, it was so stressful. It was so stressful. I had never been in front of that many people before. And suddenly there were all of these people watching over my shoulders while I was. Anyway, the real NeuroDog was the friends we made along the way. Yeah, and if you want to go back and watch the videos of her working, they're always there. It was never gonna be much more than that. Is kind of what I came away from with it. Like, okay, seeing how the car project went was actually really good for me because I always had this feeling of like, oh God, like what if I messed up? Like what if, that would have been such a good thing for him and I got his hopes up and then we never got to use it because he told me that he didn't care and that it wasn't that important and that it was fine and that we didn't have to do it if I wasn't up to it. But I had a really hard time believing it. But then once I saw, like, oh, the car is one YouTube video. It's a pretty good YouTube video. I enjoy that YouTube video. I think it's cute and funny. But the car is one YouTube video. Yeah, and I almost lost my life. I did not almost lose my life. She's not that fast. Like I said, I was totally able. Oh, yes, thank you. I'll speak a little softer. I was totally able to stop myself with just my hands going under the car. So I wasn't in any actual danger and I wasn't worried. But it is a funny moment. And I do enjoy the intensity and drama of the moment. But yeah, it's a very good video. I am glad that that video exists. But that's all the robot ever would have been, really, is like a YouTube video and maybe it getting banned at a con. So knowing that that's all I cost him by not feeling up to like fixing it, I feel a lot better about it. And hey, we always have the videos in my Discord of it falling over and of me malding about it. So, it's the friends we made along the way. Yeah, you can still go skydiving with Neuro and Evil. I don't wanna, man. I'm too scared of skydiving. I could never. I don't live on the edge like that. Despite popular belief, that child did make it. Nobody realized it, but since that stream, it's always been voice controlled due to the snapped spine. Yeah, well, how about go to space with them? Maybe someday, I don't know. Yeah, I don't really want to go to space, honestly. I feel like going to space is not that interesting to me. Because there's like no guys up there, There's all these guys on Earth. You can like scoop up a scoop of water on Earth and there's little tiny guys swimming around in there. You go up to space, there's nothing. There's like, I know there's some guys. I know there might be a lot of guys, but we haven't even found them and we probably never will. Doesn't your father watch Neuro all the time? Yeah, he loves Neuro. My dad loves Neuro. Which is delightful and adorable. But I also, it stresses me out a little bit. If I'm so honest, it does kind of stress me out that my dad is like a Neuro fan because I feel like The For a lot of VTubers, disappointing their community and disappointing their parents are two different things triggered by two different behaviors, but for me it's the same, you know? Did he watch your collabs with her? Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's it's good to have feedback, and it's good to have feedback from a member of the community as well. You joined a space club in uni, but all of the other members were geologists and physicists, no engineers. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You were all alone. So you're saying the swarm does have some power? Yeah. No, I'm not scared of the swarm anymore. I'm much more relaxed in general. I'm not scared. Like I can look at the number of viewers right now and not feel fear in my soul the way that I used to. I used to just be terrified the whole time if there were that many people. And I don't really feel that anymore. I feel pretty comfortable now. Uh I've chilled out a lot, I think. You have to. You can't be scared all the time for, forever, right? Eventually anything becomes normal. So, stadium concerts every day. How big is a stadium concert? I actually don't know. How big is a stadium concert? Don't worry, be happy, as they say. Yeah, I have a much more relaxed approach to things. And I think now if someone were like, Ellie, do you want to solo build and design a meter tall quadruped robot from scratch in your tiny New York City apartment? I would be like, that doesn't sound like a task that's possible. Oh, in 6 months while you work full time and release music and stream? I would say that doesn't sound possible, but better luck next time, and I wish you good luck with that project, right? And that's character growth. I'm happy that I've gotten to the point where I would no longer be like, oh yeah, totally, sure. Yeah, 6 months, 6 months. It ultimately wound up being, was it more than that? No, it was about 6 months because I was rated in April. I finalized the design. I was rated, yeah, at the end of April. I finalized the design at the start of my hire-a-thon, and we started building it then. That was October. And then we finished the robot in March. October, November, December, January, February. Yeah, March. That's 6 months. That's 6 months. Yeah. You're just holding out hope for a Neuro versus Evil BattleBot match? I feel like the best people to talk to would just be BattleBots people at that point, right? I feel like so I had that opportunity a little bit, but they were only the very little ones, and Vedal wasn't very interested in that, and I totally get that. He was like, I want big ones or nothing, and I totally understand that. But the problem is that robots are very expensive, and big robots are more expensive, and when you have a driver driving your robot, they're really good at it, and they're really good at preventing harm to the robot. Whereas stadium was an overestimate. Mid-sized concert halls every day. Yeah. Not a stadium. Thank goodness. I think that would stress me out. But yeah, can you comment on the mass production of humanoids currently? What is there to say that I haven't already said? Listen, I could be wrong. I don't know it. I don't know. I've been in this industry for a while, but it's not like I'm like I'm not omniscient. I don't know everything. And there are plenty of people who know way better. But coming from that, with that disclaimer out of the way, I don't think that humanoid robots are going to be replacing human labor in the near term to the extent that companies are invested in making us believe that they will.